We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to support this college football rebel outpost football channel with a donation, hit the $ where you make a comment and we'll get to you super chat as quick as we possibly can. Welcome everybody. Welcome in everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, PATC community. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. We've got ourselves a stacked show today. And I think there's going to be, as there is always, I think there's going to be some disagreement. I think there's going to be some disagreement in the PATC community. We all live in Heisman City. We have the Holy Smokes Theater over here. We've got the On Any Given Saturday Sportsbook over here. We've got the courthouse, which we haven't named yet. We've got a big community. It is growing every day thanks to you all. And I think there's going to be some disagreement. North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, we covered it yesterday. We brought up the bill. It was passed in committee. We're going to go through it. Some people believe that this bill getting passed through this committee without any discussion. Now it goes to the appropriations committee. This thing is probably going to pass all the way through. It's going to become law of the state of North Carolina, where the public institutions that are FBS are going to have to play each other. North Carolina State and North Carolina football are going to have to play each other every single year, even if they're not in the same conference. And they're going to have to be playing the other 3 FBS schools in a rotation, home and away, including football, within a 6-year period. Some people believe that this is going to make it more difficult for North Carolina Tar Heels to separate themselves from North Carolina State when the ACC implodes. Some people believe it's going to be easier for North Carolina Tar Heels to separate themselves from North Carolina State because of this bill. I have very strong opinion on it, on which way the wind is blowing. And I will give you a hint. Remember, on May 23rd, we ripped down the odds for the next realignment coming out of the ACC implosion. We tore it down. We ripped it up. I told everybody, hang on. There's been a pivotal change. Then on May 28th, we put up the new odds. Florida State to Clemson to the Big Ten is the chalk. North Carolina to Virginia to the SEC is the chalk. A lot of you disagree. I respect it. A lot of people outside of the community saying that Greg Pflugar, his cheese have slipped off his cracker. A lot of people do agree with me. There's a split, no question about it. It seems like the national reporters agree with the fat guy from Minnesota in regards to the odds. What is the chalk? What is about to happen? If you notice, when we tore down the chalk and when we brought up the new chalk on May 28th, it is now June 4th. You notice a couple things. One, you notice the national conversation seems to be going in our direction here at Peek Around the Corner. More people are coming out saying, yeah, right now it looks like Florida State, Clemson to the Big Ten, North Carolina and Virginia to the SEC. Most of the conversation is around Florida State and Clemson. Greg, you're wrong. Clemson, there is no interest from the Big Ten. There's interest from the SEC, whatever. Most of our conversations have centered around Florida State and Clemson. But if you notice, when we brought up the new chalk to go to the SEC, North Carolina State is not included. Not in the new chalk that we put up on May 28th. Now, look, everything could change. And when it does, we're going to give you the peek around the corner. But the chatter is it's North Carolina, Virginia. The chatter is that North Carolina will be able to get themselves separated from North Carolina State. That it's North Carolina, Virginia, and then the connective tissues around North Carolina. If the SEC has to do more, they will do more. Or if they become to where they want to do more, they will do more because they want to do more. They can do more. Maybe a North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, a Duke, a Kansas will become in play. Or maybe they eat the first 4 times with North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, and Florida State. But right now, the chatter is North Carolina, Virginia, the SEC. That's who they're going to eat first and second. Not with North Carolina State. I happen to believe, reading, we're going to go through an article, we're going to go through it, we're going to go through the information. I believe that this bill is intended to make it easier for North Carolina to separate themselves from North Carolina State. Now, I know a lot of people have the exact opposite reaction to this. But I believe, a couple people that I've talked to believe that this will be part of the considerations that North Carolina State will receive if North Carolina goes to the Power 2 and North Carolina State does not get a seat at the table. Now, there's going to be still, look, when it happens, when the ACC implodes, there's going to be a lot of political momentum for those with interest, with those that hold interest for North Carolina State and Virginia Tech. And we're going to be following those stories, and we're going to be reporting to you as accurately, as quickly as possible to give you the peek around the corner. But as right now, we believe this is going to be part of the considerations North Carolina State is going to get. And we don't have them as part of the chalk going to the SEC as of right now. Remember, we changed that on May 28th. And I think this bill, I think if you read it from that standpoint, that is our belief here at Peek Around the Corner. I know a lot of people disagree. I get it. And we're going to get to that story. We're going to get to the Dennis Dodd CBS story. The playoff, the possible playoff expansion from 12 to 14. The possible playoff expansion that would include automatic qualifiers. The possible change in a couple different directions when it comes to the college football playoffs have been on pause. They will be on pause until we find out how this 12-team playoff ends up. But is one of the reasons why the pause button has been hit, is it in regards to once again, the looming possible new wave of realignment? CBS poses that question in an article today. We've got a new opponent announced for Notre Dame, Fighting Irish. Very interesting opponent named. So we got a lot to get through. First, we're going to start with University of South Florida. An update on their stadium. They know the date. They know the exact date they're going to be breaking ground for that new stadium. Let's first say, I want to say thank you for everybody who has joined us at the beginning of the show. This is College Football's Peek Around the Corner. We cover college football nationally. We cover everything in college football. Bo Weevil, Go Clemson, thanks for coming on in. Don Scruggs, Mr. Georgia Bulldogs. Thanks for coming on in. Nick Kelso, Thomas, Hagen, Jay, Go Blue, Nick Kelso, Dark Moon is in the house. Don in Kansas, Daniel, DP, The Walking Geek is in the house. Charlie Atwood, We Are Penn State, Skull Ducky, Marcus Williams, Larry Andrick is in the house. Mountaineer, Caleb Ramirez, Andrew Creel, Chad Bracey, Steve the Bearcat. This show would definitely be better than my round of golf today. And Steve, your round of golf today is much better than my round of golf. B is in the house. Laura Weiss, Texas Tech Red Raider. Nick Boardman is here. My Prof is here. Ricky is here. Mr. Spartan, Anthony Carlson. Coos Corner talked about the North Carolina situation today. So go check out Coos Corner. Does an unbelievable job. Mr. Mountaineer, Coos Corner. Lee Austin Jr. is in the house. Tracy FSU, Expedition Greg, Fox Quindardo, Wayne Russell, the Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, Buckshot Kid is in the house. Congo, Stephen McNeely, the Indiana Hoosier, Daniel Montcastle is here. Edward Kennedy, Gold Nose, Daniel Gorby, the Immaculate One, Mr. Hawkeye is in the house. Juan Carlos, Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane, they appointed as a mediator. We're going to go through that. That's right. There's another story. It's a quick story. It's a story that we all knew was coming. A mediator was finally decided upon between Florida State and the ACC. The judge mandated it. We don't know how seriously either party is going to be taking this court mediation. There was a 60-day delay. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a 60-day extension from Florida State and the ACC. They both agreed to ask Judge Cooper for a 60-day extension. They received that. Some people are treating this as the biggest news of the day. This was expected. It really isn't. It's important. It's important to follow, but this had to happen. It doesn't mean anything's going to result of it. So I think some people misunderstood the importance of it. It's important, but it isn't telling us a whole lot. Hello, Mad Gopher. Skaven is in the house. Check It Out is in the house. Renee is here. Brother Mozone is here. I eat burgers without cheese. The meat should stand alone. That person right there, Renee Racha, is absolutely brilliant. The palate on Renee Racha is absolutely at an elevated state of existence. Skolducky is in the house. Minnesota Gophers 6-6. The Las Vegas line has jumped. The win total 4.5. Now it's 5, and in some places 5.5. The more the word leaks out, on quarterback Max Brosmere, the more that number starts trickling upward. 6-6, that's going over. Richard L. is in the house. Daniel is here. Stephen Vitt, D5 Terps, Expedition Greg, Gerald Jones, Mr. Hawkeye, Mountaineer Michael Monk is here. B is here. Rob Ellen is here. A lot of people. Clinton Moses, Holy Smokus, Bangarang is here. Tar Heels for life. UNC will beat Minnesota. Who's going to be your quarterback, Tar Heel, for life? Who's going to be your quarterback? How are you going to block Jaw Joyner? Defensive end, he's going to get at least a sack in that game. We shall see. We shall see. Okay, let's get to it. Connor Harrell, bring him on. Bring him on, Tar Heels for life. Bring him on. The line is 2. The line is -2 right now. Minnesota, North Carolina. Thursday night on Fox, we're going to be doing a watch party. Now, we did a watch party for Minnesota, Nebraska. Thursday night to begin the season. And it was a crazy ending of the game. Minnesota snatched victory out of the jaws of defeat, crushing the Cornhuskers' hearts once again for the 5th year in a row. And we had our biggest numbers by the end of that game because it was crazy. So hopefully we'll have a crazy Tar Heel Gopher game for Thursday. I'm all fired up. I'm all fired up. Kirk Bender is in the house. Okay, let's get it going. Let's get it going. We got a lot to get through. We have got a lot to get through. We've got a stacked show. Let's just start out here. USF Football Stadium moves ahead once again after a construction contract vote. We're going to be keeping an eye on this. Tuesday Board of Trustees meeting. We've got a date. We got a specific date, which the ground will be broken. Matt Baker, the great Matt Baker, the Tampa Bay Times. USF took another step toward opening an on-campus football stadium Tuesday. The Board of Trustees approved a construction contract. The board's finance committee quickly, unanimously approved the deal last month. It was rubber stamped. Tuesday was rubber stamped without question or debate. Before the vote, board chairperson Will Weatherford, we're going to go back to Will Weatherford later on. Will Weatherford mentioned SEC for the future of the University of South Florida Bulls. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Board chairperson Will Weatherford gave a more specific groundbreaking date for the 35,000-seat stadium, October 18th. That's the Friday before the Bulls' homecoming game against UAB. They're going to have a party. They're going to have a party a day before the homecoming game, or they're going to have a party at the homecoming game. Homecoming week, groundbreaking date. That's a very good day, October 18th. A long time in the making, no question about it. USF has needed this on-campus football stadium forever. They've been working on it forever. Weatherford, we've kind of spoken it into existence. Just really proud of our team. A lot of work has gone into finding the right place, designing the right facility, and helping us create an environment that is going to activate our campus in a way that's never been activated before. USF President Ray Law said before the vote she was very excited about the groundbreaking date. Under the construction term sheet approved Tuesday, builders will receive 2.25% of the cost of construction of the guaranteed maximum price. That figure has not been decided, and the board will have to approve it later. The Bulls have allocated up to $340 million to build the venue just north of the team's current practice facilities. The Bulls plan to move their football game from Raymond James Stadium to the new stadium for the 2027 season. The Football Women's Lacrosse Operations Center, which is also part of the project, are going to schedule to open a year earlier, 2026. Other initial key terms to the construction management agreement include USF maintaining the option to cancel at any time. Almost $490,000 in 2 pre-construction phases. $2 million owed to USF for every 2027 home game in which the stadium isn't ready. A goal of 36% of design construction expenses going to small businesses or firms owned by veterans, women, or minorities. And finally, in the article, USF plans to fund $140 million of the stadium. Up to $340 million is the max number. Of that, $140 million will be fundraised donations, the sale of broadband equipment, licensing, and other auxiliary accounts. It includes $6.3 million in 24-25 fiscal year that students approved through the Capital Improvement Trust Fund. USF is borrowing the other $200 million through a 20-year taxable loan of 6.48% interest. Those numbers are quite similar to what Minnesota did over a decade ago. Anyways, there it is. USF, October 18th is the groundbreaking date. The USF Bulls are very excited. I can tell because I'm starting to get more and more and more DMs for the Bulls out there saying, thank you for talking about it, Greg. We're getting excited. 2027, it's just right around the corner here at college football's peak around the corner. And then the gentleman here, Will Weatherford, the board chairperson, Will Weatherford, said in the meeting, he talked about, he was joking. He was joking, but he was being serious at the same time. Talking about how, now let's get to the SEC. Let's call the SEC or a conference like that so we can make $100 million more a year by the time 2027 happens. So Will Weatherford is already thinking about the SEC, USF. Very interesting time for the Bulls. It's going to be really interesting once they get that new stadium built. AAU Research University, USF is on a roll. We'll see. Now it would help if they can get some wins, right? And I think this year, here at Peek Around the Corner, top 5 G5, we had USF as number 5. So we're a little bit, we think they got something going this year. We'll talk about that more later. That's our USF story for the day. CBS playoffs. CBS Sports talks about the college football playoff expansion. It's on pause. The expansion talk from going to 12 to 14 teams, it's on pause as leaders wait to assess a 12-team format in the future landscape. Guys in the chat room, be careful. Don't be throwing elbows. Don't be throwing elbows. Chat room, calm down. 12 college football playoff expansion talks and pause as leaders wait to assess the 12-team format in future landscape. The pause button has been hit on one of the biggest college football stories in 2024. And it's largely flown under the radar. Earlier this year, the Big Ten and the SEC were in the process of what amounted to a hostile takeover of the college football playoff, already succeeding in securing a combined 59% of the media rights revenue under the new CFP contract with ESPN. they also socialized the idea of essentially taking over the bracket. The reaction from within the system was far from positive. The attempted coup had peaked or hit rock bottom, depending on how you viewed it. In February, with reports the two super conferences were attempting to grab the two top spots in the playoff for the respective champions, beginning in 2026 when the new contract goes into effect. That was in addition to seeking 3 automatic qualifiers. The final tally, 10 combined spots between the Big Ten and the SEC. I didn't agree with it, one administrator in the room at the time told CBS This Week. It would potentially delegitimize the playoff to some degree. No league has that. No league gives you a lot of access because you have money. We agreed here at Peek Around the Corner. Given the Big Ten and the SEC, their champions an automatic bye, regardless of how they're ranked, was absolutely ridiculous. We did a huge pushback on here at Peek Around the Corner. Pushback from the rest of college football was so significant that such talk diminished before flaming out altogether. In fact, a settlement of the issue, perhaps expected when CFP leaders meet again in September, looks like it will be delayed. The 10 FBS conferences plus Notre Dame have seemingly agreed to let this season play out under the 12-team format before making any further decisions about the structure for 2026 and beyond. I'm just a humble one of 11, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said this last week. Really? I thought it would be wise to get through this year. I don't think we should be looking at format before we have a 12-team experience. Let's have a deeper look at why the once aggressive talks of expanding the CFP sooner rather than later have cooled. Why has it cooled? Why has it cooled? It was aggressive talks to go from 12 to 14. Automatic qualifiers possibly. Everything has cooled. Everybody wants to see how the first year of the college football expansion, the 12-team playoffs, everyone's going to see how does it take? What happens? How much interest does it garner throughout the regular season? Well, one of the reasons why it is cooled, this expansion, this talk to go to 12 to 14 is the 5+7 model works for now. The default playoff setting is one debuting this season. A 12-team bracket with 5 highest-ranked conference champions earning an automatic berth. The top 4 teams earn a first-round bye, which leaves 7 at-large teams. For context, here's how a 12-team field would have looked last season. And I believe I skipped over that because we didn't have to go through that. I think the selection committee and the CFP management committee, I have to cope with what that means. Those 7 non-conference champion teams that participate, Sankey said. Sankey wants to see in how it looks after this year. With the dissolution of the Pac-12, those 5 automatic qualifiers at the top have essentially become the Power 4 champions in most years, plus 1, and the G5. Now, Dennis Dodd in this article says, looks like it may eventually become the Mountain West champion should the conference add Oregon State and Washington State as full members in 2026. Well, I think that plus 1 could be an AAC school. It could be a Mountain West school. But I think the Pac-8, the Pac-12, the Pac-10 is going to be forming. It looks like Dennis Dodd believes it's just going to be the Mountain West Conference taking on Oregon State, Washington State. I think it's going to be the reverse. That's our take at it at Peek Around the Corner. But anyways, the ongoing issue is those 7 at-large teams. The SEC power brokers have already given some thought on which way those should go. The Big Ten and the SEC make out in any scenario. Sankey remains on record as saying he has no problem with all at-large teams, and it's easy to see why he's taken that stance. The Big Ten and SEC teams will fill the bracket no matter the format. Why rush into formalizing it? If the current 12-team format was in place last season, 10 of the 14 teams would have come from the SEC and the Big Ten. In making the case for that 58% of the revenue, the Big Ten and the SEC noted that they had accounted for 29 of the 40 CFP berths of the first 10 years. Yet they only received 33% of the revenue. In this expansion era, they're going to get paid. It's just a matter of how much. To start talking about expanding it to whatever number, 14, 16, to start talking about expanding it to whatever number, let's see how successful this 12-team playoff format is. Mississippi State President Mark Keenum, chair of the CFP Board of Managers. I think the expanded playoffs is going to be extremely successful. It has been well received by our fan base around the country. If our coaches like it, the format, the dates, that's good. You're always going to think about options for making it better, expanding. But my goodness, it hasn't even started yet. Conference realignment. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. That's another reason why the rush to expand, to go from 12 to 14, to figure out the structure of the playoffs for 2026 and beyond. The rush has cooled. Couple of different reasons why. One of them is conference realignment. Why address CFP structure and format when college football as a whole may not be done with realignment? Florida State's dodge effort to get out of the ACC threatens to trigger the next round of consolidation. Florida State's departure would diminish, if not cripple, the league. We've already seen that in the Pac-12. We've already seen the Pac-12 dissolve. This promises to be a bitter, legal battle that could take years or not. The next date to watch is August 15th. I don't even think that's the next date to watch. I'll get to that in a second. That's definitely not the next date to watch. The next date to watch, according to Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, is August 15, when Florida State is required to give the ACC 1 year's notice of its intention to leave the conference. Clemson, which has filed its own lawsuit to get out of the league, is watching closely. After Florida State, North Carolina might be the one of the most valued brands for any conference. So how do you decide on automatic qualifiers when you don't even know how many conferences will exist? And finally in the article, CBS Sports, Dennis Dodd, opt-outs, collective bargaining, unions, the playoffs could be impacted by any or all of those factors in the future. We've already told you about the likelihood of the top draft choices possibly skipping the playoff games. Opt-outs are already an issue among the rank and file bowls. If opt-outs become a trend, the college football playoffs may have to do something, because losing even one high draft choice impacts the playoffs' credibility. A startup basketball tournament in Las Vegas intends to share NIL money with the players Could the college football playoffs be moved to do something similar? Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe there definitely going to be some money, some extra money given to players who make the playoffs. That has to happen. It has to happen this year. We cannot have opt-outs. We need to have balloon payments at the end of the year as well when it comes to these NIL agreements with these players. Because once you have players opting out, then you delegitimize the playoffs, you delegitimize the regular season, you delegitimize everything. It's okay for opt-outs when we're talking about the Pinstripe Bowl or the Gator Bowl or back in the day the Blue Bonnet Bowl. But we need to do everything we possibly can not to have opt-outs during the playoffs. Because suddenly the value of everything drops. We can't have that. Not in the sport that we love. Okay, first of all, I want to get to a super chat. Very generous, evil Badger, the Ryan Willie. Minnesota go 3-9. They will lose at least 3 trophy games. Wisconsin will keep the axe. Michigan will keep the little brown jug, and Iowa will take the Florida Rosedale back. UNC will beat Minnesota. Wisconsin will take the Heartland Trophy. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I don't know what you're on, Ryan Willie, but I don't want any part of it. I don't want to smoke what you're smoking. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you so much for your continued generosity to this channel. I did see Big Ten Ted put out a post a little bit before when we came on live, and his posting was that Nebraska, since they've joined the Big Ten, since Nebraska has joined the Big Ten in the quad of hate, which is Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Nebraska, Nebraska is 10-58. That's their record against the quad of hate. I knew it was bad. I didn't think it was that bad. I did not think it was that bad. That is unbelievable. But then Big Ten Ted said maybe Nebraska has the brightest future of the quad of hate. We're going to find out. We're going to find out a lot about Nebraska. If they can develop, they've got the quarterback of the future, Dylan Raiola. I think he could be absolutely incredible, but we'll see what happens there. Minnesota, 3-9, not a chance. Not a chance. Buckle up, evil Badger, Ryan Willie. Buckle up. Okay, let's get to the next story. I told you we got a stacked show today. Stacked show today. Just let me check out the chat. People are talking about Western Civic. Okay, let's get to the next story. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan Willie. I do appreciate it so very much. Even though I disagree, Minnesota's not losing all the trophy games. No way, no how. We got Matt Fortuna. Notre Dame and Boise State will play October 4th, 2025 at Notre Dame Stadium. But so this, big news. Big news for Boise State. They've never played Notre Dame. October 4th, 2025, they're playing. But I really like this next tweet from Matt Fortuna. Here's a now plausible scenario. What if Boise State and Notre Dame first meet in the same venue this December 20 or 21st? That very well could happen. Very well could happen. A 5th seed Notre Dame versus 12th seed Boise State. So Boise State and Notre Dame getting ready to play each other for the very first time on October 25th. They could be playing each other for the very first time on December 20 or 21st, 2024. Home game. Notre Dame at the 5th as a 5th seed. And now let's get to, before we get to the North Carolina story, I just want to post this for a second. And we knew this was going to happen. This is not big news. It's just something that needed to happen. It happened in the Circuit Court of the 2nd Judicial Circuit in and for Leon County, Florida. Florida State University Board of Trustees, plaintiff, Atlantic Coast Conference, the defendant, the stipulation mediator selection. The plaintiff, Florida State University Board of Trustees, and defendant, Atlantic Coast Conference, notify the court that they have reached the required stipulation as to mediation. Not a whole lot of information here. Basically, they've chose the mediator. This, again, this doesn't mean there's going to be any negotiations, true negotiations going on. Now, there might be true negotiations going on right now. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, except for the parties. We were told months and months and months ago, when they sit down at the negotiation table, it's going to be a very tight window, and it's highly doubtful, highly doubtful any leaks come out of it. It's probably going to be lawyers or mediation experts that are even outside the realm of the lawyers that are working at the case in Leon County, Pickens County, and Mecklenburg County. We get information leaked to Peek Around the Corner. We give you the Peek Around the Corner. Yesterday, we were able, fortunately, to break the news that Iowa and Minnesota were going to be playing on NBC primetime. We were the very first ones to break that news. But that is very, 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 very small potatoes compared to breaking the news that there's some negotiations going on. I'm sorry. Peek Around the Corner ain't going to get that information. I don't know anybody that will. And if they had it, I don't know they would even leak it because they would burn a major source. So my point is, could there be negotiations going on between Clemson and Florida State and the ACC? Yeah, there could be. Right now, there could be. I don't think so. I would bet against it, but it could be. This mediation that's set up by the Judge Cooper, in which he spaced months ago, when this first started, he said, I'm going to order mediation. It doesn't mean anything important is going to happen in that mediation. In fact, when Judge Cooper first ordered both parties to select someone to mediate, they couldn't resolve the issue. They asked Judge Cooper for a 60-day extension to select a mediator. And he granted it. And now they've got it. That's what all this is about. Judge Cooper's pro-mediation. Maybe it gets done in that type of setting. People that I talk to don't believe so. They don't believe it's going to be done, and they don't believe the mediation happening, ruled by Judge Cooper in Leon County. That's not going to be the place where it happens. Part of the reason why is because Clemson is in the game. Not to say that all three parties are going to be in the same room talking about it, but there's other influences beyond what is going on in Leon County. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Okay, so we're done with that. Now let's get to North Carolina. As Brian Murphy, the bill that would force North Carolina State to play other in-state FBS programs routinely in football and basketball passes committee in less than 2 minutes. No discussion. No discussion. It just passed the committee, and I think it's going to Appropriation Committee. An article, we're going to go through an article, then we're going to take your phone calls, your comments, super chats, and but let's go through an article again by WRAL News, the one and only Brian Murphy, who broke the news on Twitter. He wrote an article. It was published this afternoon. Let's take a look. NC lawmakers seek to force North Carolina State to play football, basketball versus in-state schools. A new bill brought by several prominent Republican lawmakers would require North Carolina and North Carolina State to play games against East Carolina, Appalachian State, and Charlotte. But that's not the big news. We'll get to the big news in just a moment. North Carolina, Brian Murphy, WRAL. North Carolina lawmakers want to require the state's two biggest and richest athletic programs, UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina State, to regularly play football and basketball games against other in-state public schools. Under a bill filed by prominent Republican House members, UNC and North Carolina State will be required to play at least one of East Carolina, Appalachian State, and Charlotte every year, and would have to play each school home and away every 6 years. So North Carolina State, every single year, let's take for football, every season of football, a non-conference game is going to have to be played against East Carolina, Appalachian State, or Charlotte. One of those three. And throughout the 6 years, North Carolina is going to have to play East Carolina at home and at East Carolina. Every 6 years. North Carolina is going to have to play Appalachian State at home and away once every 6 years, and Charlotte. And here's the big one. The PATC money shot of the article. UNC and North Carolina State would also be required to play each other home or away every year. A nod to looming realignment that could move the longtime rivals into separate conferences. Sports tourism is vital to the economy of North Carolina. In the intrastate collegiate athletics generates millions of dollars in economic impact to the state. It is the priority of the General Assembly to encourage intrastate collegiate athletic rivalries in order to promote economic development. I want to dig deep into this part. Again, when we opened the show, we talked about how a lot of people are split on this. A lot of people are split on the... Does this make it more likely that North Carolina, if it comes to conference affiliation, if they would join the SEC, does this make it easier or does it make it more difficult to separate themselves from the other prominent public institution in North Carolina State? Does it make it more difficult or does it make it easier for North Carolina to separate themselves from North Carolina State on the question of conference realignment? We happen to believe at Peek Around the Corner, and it falls into line with what we were told. This is why we have North Carolina and Virginia as the chalk to go to the SEC. We think this makes it easier. It's still going to be difficult. There may have to be other considerations at play. There may be another tax, or maybe the tax gets paid in this way. Maybe this is the consideration that North Carolina State gets. They're probably going to get more. If North Carolina goes to the SEC without North Carolina State going to the SEC of the Big Ten, there's a whole lot of interest, a whole lot of power in that state that's going to make sure that North Carolina State's going to be still a viable athletic department, the front porch of the university, and I believe this is one of the considerations that North Carolina State's going to get. No matter what, they're going to be playing North Carolina in basketball, men's, women's, and football, no matter which way this goes for both schools in conference realignment. Now, a lot of people say, no, Greg, you're wrong. This shows the interest, the power, the backing that North Carolina State has. This shows the power of that North Carolina is going to be playing North Carolina State and the other public schools no matter what. And then, so you can tell me in your comments and your phone calls, we're going to be opening up the phone lines here in a moment. We're going to be opening up the phone lines. You can give us a call, 763-260-1333. About Duke. What about Duke? How does this affect Duke? Well, let's think about Duke football. Let's focus on Duke football. Now, North Carolina, let's say they go to the SEC. Let's say that North Carolina goes to the SEC. We're pretending here. Well, according to this bill, they're going to be two of their non-conference games. Two of them. If North Carolina goes to the SEC without North Carolina State and without Duke, two of the non-conference games every single year are going to be North Carolina State and one of the other three public universities. East Carolina, Appalachian State, or Charlotte. So now, if North Carolina goes to the SEC alone, with, let's say, Virginia, the chances of North Carolina and Duke locking up in football, they're going to lock up in basketball, no matter where those two teams are. But in football, does it cut off Duke from playing North Carolina? Which would be a travesty. But the requirement for the public universities to play each other within every 6-year span, think about what the effect of Duke football. Rod Nix, this is the first concession and acknowledging of key power brokers in the state that the ACC is in trouble. Interesting way of putting it. Very interesting way of putting it. Now, you know, if the state of Oklahoma could have retraced their steps, would have Oklahoma State, they probably would have liked this law, right? Oklahoma would have to play Oklahoma State in football every single year, no matter if they split up. Maybe people that hold the interest of Iowa State, the Cyclones, maybe you want that law to be put into place in the state of Iowa. No matter what, even though they're already in two different conferences, no matter what, Iowa, you have got to play the Cyclones every single year. Very interesting. Immaculate. If realignment keeps going, 10-game conference schedules in the future is not out of the question. It's not out of the question. Now, 10-game conference games would basically, almost certainly, at some point, eliminate one of your home games in your stadium. You would have to play 6 home games, not 7 home games, eventually. I mean, if you got 10 conference games, you're going to be scheduling 5 home games, 5 home, 5 road, and you're not always going to have those 2 non-conference games be at home. Eventually, you're going to have to go on the road because you have a home series against another big brand college football program. And then you're going to go from 7 home games to 6. The athletic directors across the country they don't want to do that for obvious reasons. But if the money is big enough in TV, if it overcomes the ticket sales and all that stuff, 10 conference games, we shall see. We shall see. The architect, politicians set in the deck. Yeah, Paul, we said it, we said it months and months and months ago, probably over a year ago. We said this realignment is going to make everything look like child's play. And one of the reasons is the politicians are going to get more involved in this realignment than other ones. Oklahoma and Texas, they did it. They got it done. Houston Chronicle broke the story before the SEC and those 2 schools wanted that story to break. It got done. It broke. The USC story, I tried my best to get the country to wake up. Didn't really work. It happened. Things happened. UCLA moved. But the state of North Carolina is being incredibly proactive. I'm going to tell you something right now before I open up the phone lines. I have to take the L on something. The fat guy from Minnesota has to take an L on this story, this ACC story of realignment. First of all, let me get the phone lines ready here. My L for today, the big L. And I'm surprised I'm taking this L. I thought for sure. I did not promise you a date. Well, maybe I did. It doesn't matter. I'm taking the L anyways. There is no way did I believe for a moment, because I was told something, but it hasn't happened yet. And I promised you it would happen, and it hasn't. Once I answer this call, I'm going to tell you about Big L for June 4th.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you hold on for a moment?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it, BJ. Thanks for calling. The big L I'm taking is there is no way on God's green earth that I believe that we were not going to have a major publication, not write an article about the political entanglement between Virginia and Virginia Tech. There's been a little bit of dab here and there. People kind of mention it. But I'm talking about, I thought for sure we were told someone was going to do it. It hasn't happened. And I told you guys this is going to happen soon. Soon. We're going to get some publication talking about Virginia and Virginia Tech. And it's not just about the Attorney General that wants to keep those two schools together, but there are major legislators. I said this was going to happen. It did not happen. So, got to take the L on that one. Now, it does me no good. It does me no good to tell you guys, yeah, it's going to happen now, but we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen between Virginia and Virginia Tech. I know somebody has done research on it, but anyways, we'll see what happens, but I'm taking the L. BJ, the floor is yours.
Once again, Greg, thanks for having me on.
You got it.
A few things I want to talk about or just comment on. And it's like the more each day brings clarity to me when it comes to the different objectives between the different conferences, networks, right, and particular like university leadership. And in particular, like I'm not a big Jim Phillips fan, right? However, I think now I understand his logic, his reasoning, and his moves make total sense now, right? Mm-hmm. In the sense that, like, I did some research on just the composition of the ACC teams. I didn't realize this, but every ACC team is a top 80 academic institution outside of Louisville, right? The teams they brought in are academically astute organizations. And I think that Jim Phillips and the presidents of those schools take the academic reputation of schools entering the ACC very seriously, as serious as the Big Ten. I also noticed that when it comes to Virginia Tech, they are way more intertwined than I had previously thought, right? Mm-hmm. I read some old articles about when Virginia Tech came to the ACC, there was a lot of political pressure in Virginia to make that happen.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
And the political entanglements that are in North Carolina between, NC State, North Carolina, and the Board of Governors. And with that being said, I highly doubt that those schools split up. I highly doubt that those schools split up, and I think the local political pressure will basically communicate to the SEC or the Big Ten, if you want these markets, right, if you want us so badly, we come with baggage, and that baggage is NC State and or Virginia Tech. I just don't see them splitting up. And when I look at Florida State and I look at Miami, they are on the field, they're tied together. But the odd thing about Miami and Florida State is the Miami leadership co-signed the lawsuit against Florida State.
Yep.
And I think Florida State at that moment has decided to bind themselves with Clemson instead of Miami. And I could be wrong, but it appears as though the Florida State leadership was not happy with Miami leadership and their stance to bring the lawsuit on Florida State. And so when I look at the ACC, I see three tandems: UNC, NC State, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be completely wrong, but as I'm just evaluating and trying to look at it through a perspective that's not fanatical, it's not fan based, it's not necessarily football based, but university alignment based, I came to the conclusion that Jim Phillips and the ACC are just an academic institutions that just so happen to play athletics. And I'll end it with this, Greg, and you can kind of give me your 2 cents on what I just said. I don't see any ACC team, going to the Big 10 or Big 12 for several. The only team that may go is Louisville, because Louisville academically, like just as I said, all the ACC teams are top 80. All of the Big 12 teams are below 100 except for TCU and Baylor. TCU is 76, Baylor is 80. Every other Big 12 team is north of 120. And so I don't see like the Dukes of the world, the Pitts of the world. I don't see them being academically aligned with schools in the Big 12 because they just have two academic different strategies and purposes. But I could be wrong, but from a university alignment standpoint, I just don't see an academically astute school voluntarily wanting to align themselves with the academic, league that's not academically focused. But thanks for listening to me, Greg. I really appreciate you having me on.
You got it.
And if you can give me your 2 cents, that'd be great.
You got it. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thanks for calling, BJ. Yeah, we're not gonna put up on any given Saturday sports book. We're not gonna put up the chalk, the odds on who's gonna go to the Big 12 because, when I get asked that question, my first response is, man, it really depends on that number, that settlement number. That is gonna speak volumes. So there's too many unknowables to even. Louisville, Pittsburgh, those schools I can see going to the Big 12 if things are, if a lot more schools leave the ACC and whatever. But we'll get to that when we need to get to that. I'm not going to put anything up on the sports book because, frankly, I'm not being. Those discussions are not even the discussions I'm having. You can speculate on it all, but I cannot even begin to put up on any given Saturday sports book the odds of what school is going to go to the Big 12. Too many big dominoes have to fall. We got to see how they fall, how expensive those dominoes are before we get to that.
Call from
Big Ten brother.
Big Ten brother is on the line. The floor is yours, sir. Thanks for calling again. Appreciate it.
Hey, what's going on, Greg? Hey, listen, that last call I was listening to him, and I don't mean to laugh, but when he said that Jim Phillips put together a coup when he put together these schools for academic reasons, does he think that Cal and Stanford and the ACC had just a number of choices that they could have went in 10 different directions? I mean, the reason they're coming together is because they are looking at each other and going, now what? Where should we go? They're not coming together for academic reasons. It's all about money. It's who makes the money, who has the money purse, whatever you want to call it. It all has to do with networks, money, and alumni. It doesn't have, if academics line up that it's a great academic school, yeah, they'll look at that. They'll say, well, if it comes between this school and that school, and this one's a great academic school, and this one's an average one, let's say it's, North Carolina and Syracuse. Well, yeah, they're going to take North Carolina because they're AAU, but they're not going to take a school because they're like, wow, look at their academics. Well, we're going to lose a ton of money if we take them, but we want to keep them. We want to get them because of their academics.
And
what do you think about that?
You can see that because Big Ten did not take California, Berkeley, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Stanford.
Yeah.
So I just think at the end of the day, like if you're reading too much into this, if you think that Jim Phillips pulled a coup that no other commissioner seen by grabbing Cal and Stanford, but like really, you think that? You think that's what's going to save the ACC? I think the only reason that they came over is one, Notre Dame got them to come over and got the ACC to accept them. And they had to do it that way because if they lose the top 3 or 4 schools, you have to have so many schools to remain a conference, right? You have to have 12 schools.
You have to have 12 schools?
Yeah, I think you have to have a certain amount of schools to remain a conference.
Well, for the college football playoff, first of all, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Who's ever doing the Genetics 56 thing in the chat, I put you on a 24-hour timeout yesterday. Not because I believe you are that person, but I just, we don't have, I don't want people coming in the chat. I want you to come in the chat being yourself. I don't want you to be playing the same thing when we have people coming in pretending they're Tony Altimore I don't want parody stuff going on in the chat. I want you to come in the chat, talk about college football, have fun, but I don't want that parody accounts coming on it. So whoever was running that, I gave you a chance. I gave you a 24-hour. Now I'm just gonna hide you. So anybody else thinking about trying to come in here being a parody of somebody else, it's just not going to work in this community. Okay, go ahead, Big Ten brother. I apologize for cutting you off. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So my thing here is I think the ACC is just working off desperation. I don't think they have any leverage over anything at all. Nothing. Cal and Stanford had nowhere to go. I'm surprised, really, they didn't bring Washington State and Oregon State over just for geographical reasons for Cal and Stanford.
Well, they might have to eventually. Which reminds me, when you talk about ACC leverage, I forgot. I apologize, Big Ten brother. I got to just take a moment here, and we'll get back to it. This is the second time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Second time I'm being rude to you, so I do apologize, sir.
Okay.
I forgot when I was reading the Dennis Dodd article earlier, and he talking about the next important day is August 15th in this ACC drama. Getting back to ACC leverage, just like what Big Ten brother said. I don't think that's the next important date at all. I think the next important date, the real important date, is July 12th or sometime before July 12th, when we together, PATC community, gather to watch a live stream. Hopefully they give us a live stream of it, but we're going to be reporting on it in Pickens County when the hearing, the pleading of Clemson wanting filed a summary motion. They want a judgment on their first clause in their first amended complaint. They want that judgment from the judge on whether or not, if Clemson leaves the conference, they get back their media rights. They own their media rights. And the hearing on that is July 12th or before, on or before July 12th. We don't have the exact date. I keep hitting the refresh on the Pickens County court records. But when we get that date, that is going to be, not that there's going to be a ruling on that day, but their hearing is going to be on that day before July 12th. And then we're probably going to get a ruling before August 15th on whether or not, if Clemson leaves the conference, they get to grab back their media rights. That's the next big day. That's the next big day in this ACC drama, in my opinion. Go ahead, sir. Thank you, Big Ten brother.
Yes, obviously that's a huge thing because if you get to keep your media rights, the ACC absolutely has no leverage.
Yeah,
Then it comes down.
Then Clemson is announcing, and Florida State's going to be announcing. Yeah, we're gone.
Then Miami,
yeah.
right? And then the next date is how much is the check going to be, and how much is it going to be for? Because that's going to come pretty fast if they get to keep their media rights.
Well,
that check is. Go ahead.
What will happen is there'll be an appeal, right? It will give Clemson and Florida State and whoever, but we'll give Clemson and Florida State the upper hand on leverage. That's why when you talked about ACC lack of leverage, it triggered my mind back to what I wanted to talk about earlier. ACC could lose leverage. Whatever leverage they have, they could lose it. It depending on what happens in Pickens County on that summary motion by Clemson. Go ahead, sir.
Right, exactly right. And then it'll go to an appeal. And then what I'm saying is, then it depends on the check. Does the ACC want to wait for it to go to appeal? Because if you take it to an appeal and you lose again, then you're going to lose even more money. So they have a decision to make. Hey, this is where it's at. If it goes to an appeal, we lose. Guess what? That check drops in half once again. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting. Like you said, what you're talking about in Pickens County, and then what happens with the appeal, because as you see that goes on and on, that money starts dwindling.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So that's about it. I just thought it was funny that they thought that that Phillips was put together a coup de grace to take over college football by looking at the academics and putting all the schools together before academic, let's get Stanford and Cal, and this will blow the SEC out of the water. Yeah. All right, Greg, I'll talk to you later.
You got it. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Great call.
All right, boy.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours.
Hey, what's up, Greg? So I want to clarify. Something.
Yeah.
Of what I said earlier. It is not Jim Phillips' choice or decision of who joins the ACC. What I was communicating was, I think from the ACC presidents, because the schools are added to a conference based off the votes of the presidents. And I'm thinking, those presidents wants to be aligned with academic students. It is not by choice that the Clemsons of the world, the FSUs of the world, who are not great academic institutions 10 years ago, are now rated by U.S. News and academics very astute schools, right? I think it is a strategy that the ACC has employed that schools must be a certain academic standing. That's all. Mm-hmm. And the logic of, okay, how come the reason why I think they picked SMU is not a singular choice instead of picking up Wazoo and Oregon State, right? Because the prorata clause, they would have got more money by picking up those two schools versus the SMU. I think Stanford, it was reported that Stanford and Cal is getting like 30% initially, and it's going to go up every year there, in the conference. They could have made more money. The conference, the ACC conference could have made more money by adding the 4 Pac-12 schools instead of the 2 Pac-12 schools and the 1 G5 school. And this, mind you, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's fact. Yep. Just me trying to connect the dots.
Yep.
But when you look at the Wazoos of the world and the Oregon States of the world, they are horrific academic institutions when you compare them to the Dukes, the Pitts, the Wake Forests, the North Carolinas, the NC States. And so you have to, I have to ask myself, why would you pick up SMU? They don't have a big market share of the Dallas media. And if you're looking at, subs when it comes to cable packages, that you cannot bank on that because they're a small private institute. I think SMU and Wake Forest are the two smallest Power 5 schools, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think they're around 8,000 to 9,000 students.
But the reason why the ACC took them in, because it helped grease the skids to get Stanford and California on board. Because ESPN had to pay pro rata on all three of those. So the ACC schools are collecting money that would have been going to Stanford and California, but they were willing to take a discount, and SMU was willing to take a 9-year no tier 1 payment. So basically SMU greased the skids for that inclusion to get out ahead of the looming implosion, the looming realignment that's about to happen. The ACC wanted to make sure they could grab a couple schools like a Stanford in California. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I got you. So look at it this way: if the pro rata was $40,000, let's say it's 40 for simplicity, that's $120 million. I'm not 40,000, 40 million. That's $120 million for 3 schools, right? Two schools get 30%. One school is foregoing everything, right? If we can get 4 schools for $160 million and have all 4 agree to 30%, the numbers pretty much are the same. Mm-hmm. To me, it would be you wouldn't have to fight to get SMU CFP money like you did, because Jim Phillips had to fight. I think they delayed it a couple years. Washington State and Oregon State would have gotten their full CFP money. That would have been extra money for the conference. And I'm not a TV guy. It just didn't make sense to grab SMU when you have Oregon State and Washington State out there, and they could be traveling partners, and they can lessen the travel blow for this new big, humongous league, in my opinion. And I could be wrong, but I don't want it to make it seem like Jim Phillips made this decision unilaterally. I think it was the presidents who really wanted academic great institutions. But thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to come back on.
You got it.
I'm gonna get back in the comment section.
Thank you. Appreciate it, BJ. Thanks for calling, sir. Danielle, thank you for the super chat. It's not all about academics and markets. The Ivy League would be the number 1 conference in America if it was all about academics and markets. Thank you for the super chat, Daniel. I do appreciate your generosity. You're absolutely correct. I want to take a look at this here. On 3 by Jesse Simonton, analyzing the 2024 Big Ten win total projections.
Call from
K-State rules.
K-State rules. Can you hold on for a moment?
Yeah, that's fine.
I do appreciate it. I want to go into a little bit of a rant here. On 3, Jesse Simonton, analyzation projections of the 2024 win totals. I'm going to put it up on the screen. No! Too high. Minnesota 5.5. Purdue 4.5. UCLA 5.5. Washington 7.5. Minnesota, and I said this early in the program, has gone from 4.5. They're up to 5 in some books. They're up to 5.5 in some books, because the word's getting out. The word is getting out on Max Brosmere. More to that story, not on this show, but later on. Minnesota's up to 5.5, and on 3 said, nope, that's too high. Should have stayed at 4.5. Should have stayed at 4.5. Purdue 4.5, too high? I don't know, man. UCLA 5.5, too high? I do agree with that. Washington 7.5, just right. Indiana 5.5, Michigan State 4.5, Oregon 10.5, Rutgers 6.5, Wisconsin 6.5, Illinois 5.5, Michigan 9.5, Northwestern 5.5, Penn State 9.5, USC Southern California 7.5. Too low. Nebraska 7.5 is too low. I agree. I've got them 8-4. Not 9-3, not 7-5, 8-4. Book it. Nebraska's going 8-4. Iowa 7-5 is too low. I agree, because they're going to have a great defense in the schedule. They're going to win 8 games. Ohio State 10.5. I agree. Maryland 6.5. That's too low. I don't know about that. I think that's about just right. But they got my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers 5.5 win totals too high. We're going to see about that. Go ahead, caller. You're on the line. The floor is yours. Thanks for your patience.
Hey, Greg. First time caller, but I've been listening to your program for probably over a year now. You put on a great show.
Appreciate it.
But just wanted to kind of run a scenario by you. So when we've been looking at college realignment over the last few years, whether it be Big 12, Pac-12, whatever the case, we've been looking at conferences that had expiring TV contracts. Well, you look at the ACC, and they actually have a TV contract, and it's locked in till 2036. So, like when Texas and OU left the Big 12, many thought, the Big 12 was doomed. What are they going to do now? And, well, they added 4 G5 schools, and instead of getting paid less, ESPN actually paid them more. Well, the ACC is very, very valuable to ESPN. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
just say FSU and Clemson do leave.
Yes, sir.
Well, what happens if ESPN comes back and actually pays them more or pays them the same? Do you see a scenario where the conference just stays together?
Great call. And I do see a scenario they stay together. I do see a scenario where they lose a Florida State and a Clemson and a couple others, and they expand with a couple G5 schools and they stay together. Now, if they lose a Florida State and Miami, they're definitely going to pick up a USF, right? They have to get back into Florida, right? So, I think if they pick up a USF, pick up a Tulane, possibly Washington State, Oregon State, it is valuable to the ESPN. They have been making money. They may have to cut they may have to cut that contract some, but they may be able to stay together. That money, especially that money that a Florida State, Clemson, a North Carolina, possibly Virginia, or whoever are going to be paying out on the fee to get out. If it's high, they can stay together, no question about it. I think that's a viable future for the ACC to stay together in some form, some fashion.
What do you think the percentage chance of that is? Because, when I sit down and think about it, I'm a Big 12 fan. I'm a K-State fan. But,
Yep.
Why would a team pay an exorbitant exit fee just to move over to a conference like ours that has a similar payout?
And that's why I've said that whatever that number is so important to whatever the Big 12 can or cannot do. And that's why I won't even put up the odd. We got to know how this plays out, how the settlement number is, if it's really low or if there's an outright victory by Clemson. If there's an outright victory by Clemson and it gets appealed and it gets beaten back on appeal and whatever, and now there's an opportunity for the Big 12 to eat at the ACC's table. But I agree. There may be a situation here where where Big 12 doesn't expand, you know, or they wait until more years down the line.
So I mean, it's going to be dependent on the court case, and it's going
Yep.
to be dependent on ESPN too,
Yes.
on
Yeah.
if they're going to come back and lowball them or keep it around the same.
Yep. Yep. I agree with you. Excellent call. K-State rules. You're gonna have. I know you're a first-time caller. Please be a second, third, fourth, fifth-time caller in a short period of time. Okay, sir?
I will. Thank you, Greg.
I got it. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Great call. Excellent call by K-State rules. Giving us something to think about. Again, I had to do a little bit of a little bit of a rant on the too high, too low, just right win totals on 3 Big Ten.
Call from
Rob.
Rob is on the line. Thanks for calling, Rob. The floor is yours.
I was curious, do you think Jim Phillips would be transparent in his negotiations with Clemson at FSU to ESPN? Well, how does he – I mean, it's a three-way triangle, I guess is kind of what I'm asking your thoughts on, is how honest is he with them, or would he hold his cards close trying to protect the ACC? And
well, first
but
of all,
long run, he torched his relationship with ESPN if he did that.
First of all, he's going to have to be honest, obviously, with ESPN. The question is, the intriguing question is that you just presented, and there may be an obvious answer. Maybe I shouldn't be hemming and hawing at that. Is the question of, he's going to have to be honest, but how transparent does he need to be? Like,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, what if he could flip the script on him? What if nothing's announced? February 1st rolls around,
Yeah.
and they renew the option, and then Clemson and FSU leave after that. Jim Phillips, all of a sudden it's, hey, you signed the contract. This is the agreement. We're good till 2036.
Yeah.
I mean, he's desperately trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just an interesting one. And then I guess the kind of the same analogy, would FSU and Clemson tell ESPN they were leaving before February 21st? Then ESPN declines the contract and they get out cheap because it would fold.
Well, I would think that whenever Florida State and Clemson tells the world that they're going to leave the ACC, I got a feeling that they're going to tell the ACC first. In the way they do that is they send a letter to the commissioner and all the other presidents. That's the official notice of withdrawal. But it interests me, your call in about what role does ESPN play in and we haven't had much when it comes to ESPN, when it comes to all this stuff, there almost seems to be a blackout from national college football reporters. They never really include ESPN in what's going on in realignment. Like, none of them have attempted to describe how much of a hand ESPN is going to possibly play in all of this. In other words, when you're talking about possible settlement, it always is like Jim Phillips, the ACC. When are they going to feel like they need to settle? Something happens in the court, but no one ever discusses the ESPN's role in. Does Jim Phillips, is he going to call ESPN first, and do they have to acquiesce? before Jim Phillips tells his lawyers, his group of lawyers, his mediation lawyers, look, it's time to start negotiation with Clemson and Florida State. I got a feeling, and I've said this before, and I could be completely wrong, that I think there is some spreadsheet somewhere where Clemson and ACC have figured out how much exactly they need from a Clemson and Florida State exit for them to agree upon a negotiated settlement. At some point, a certain date, time, money, which school goes, I think this has to be all on a spreadsheet here on June 4th, 2024. But I could be wrong.
It's just interesting to me since there's three parties involved, and you never know who's going to partner up and short the third party. I mean, I've gone back and forth on, okay, let's say Fox or some other money source got involved and it wasn't so prohibitively expensive for Clemson and FSU. And the schools are mad at the situation that they're in and they want to take it out on the ACC. It'll happen before August 15th and they'll go to the Big Ten. And if nothing happens until after February, then I felt like, okay, maybe they're all trying to play nice, protect the ESPN, and they'll go SEC. But I don't know. I've gone round and round on it a few times in my head, but I was just curious what you thought.
Yeah, that whole third party. That
yeah,
ESPN,
I mean, one of those threes is gonna get beat up, and the other two are gonna come out okay. There's just no way around that.
Yeah. Great call, sir.
All right, Greg, you have a great day.
Appreciate
Good luck
it. Great
with
call.
the
Call
this
again,
year.
man.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yep. Thank you.
Great call. A lot of great calls once again. If you're new to the channel or if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe button and then smash the like button. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. We do not go on a schedule here at Peek Around the Corner. We go where the story goes and we open up at the time when it is right. We could do a morning live show tomorrow. We could do a lunchtime live show. We could be on at night. We sometimes go on twice a day when it is needed. So you have to have your notifications turned on. And also follow us at Flug Empire on X because we give everybody a heads up when we're about to come on. Most of the time we're able to give a heads up. So subscribe, have your notifications turned on. Please smash the like button. If you want to support this College Football Rebel Outpost channel with a donation, hit the $, make a comment. We'll get you super chat as soon as possible. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333.
Call from
Steve.
Steve is on the line. The floor is yours.
How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing good, Mr. Bearcat. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, we got to get another building on the PATC campus called the Think Tank because
The what clinic?
it's calls today. The Think Tank. Think Tank.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because all these calls today
Yeah.
are bringing up points that never crossed this old man's mind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
I'm going,
I get it. Yes.
I'm going, I never thought of that angle.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different angle.
Yeah.
Well, that's not far-fetched, you know? And it's just, it's amazing how the people in this community think things through.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, whether we agree with them, disagree with them, or whatever. The points being brought up today are, as most days,
Yeah.
just something that is thought-provoking, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of that is because, first of all, it's a national show, so we're grabbing everybody from every region. We got old guys like you and me. We got younger guys who look at things differently, and we got everything in between. So, great point,
Exactly.
Steve. Yeah.
Exactly. Greg, I wanted to touch on basically, and excuse me, I always come back to this. What's Notre Dame sitting here thinking as they're watching? What's their mindset as they're watching everything happen?
Well, I was thinking you were going to ask that question, and my answer was all set up. I have no idea. I just want to say, everybody, we got a huge storm that's hitting us right now here in Maple Grove, Minnesota. If you look at the radar. So if something should happen, if suddenly this show goes off the air, whatever, I'm just letting you know. We've got a major storm. If you look at the radar, it's ascending on Maple Grove as we speak. If you hear the thunder and everything that's outside the studio, just letting you guys know what is going on. Go ahead, Mr. Bearcat. Apologize for interrupting there.
No, that's fine. No, those are storms that are forecast for us over here in Ohio tomorrow. Yeah. They're going to get here tomorrow. So anyhow, I'm just sitting here going, the economic, I don't know what, the economic pressures that may come with everything happening in the courts, and maybe conferences paying the athletes, and I would think Notre Dame's got to take a long, hard look at, can we sustain this on our own, not being in a conference?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
and their scheduling. What happens?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. What happens with that football scheduling? I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I just and somebody find out exactly what NBC's paying them. Would somebody really find out exactly, or will we never find out again?
I don't know, but I and I've said this before. We were told. Okay, I want everybody to. We were told something from the same source. I can say this. The same source. We were able to break a national news yesterday, Steve. When we announced the Iowa at Minnesota NBC primetime game.
Correct. Yeah.
We put out that we broke that news, and we got that news from obviously somebody connected somehow, some way, a leak from NBC. Okay. Same source told us, a while ago, that Notre Dame NBC contract didn't give us a number, but it is a range. It's set on a range. The number is determinant on the schedule that NBC provides NBC, that Notre Dame provides NBC. So I don't know how big a range that is. I don't know how much of a difference it is, but each of those, NBC has it all tiered out to where, if Notre Dame has a really not so good home games NBC schedule, it's going to be on the lower part of that range. So, so I think, in other words, getting back to what you were saying, if we get an implosion here, and we get multiple schools leaving, especially the bigger brand football programs in the ACC, that's going to affect Notre Dame's scheduling. That could affect the contract.
Absolutely.
And that could affect Notre Dame's decision making, right?
Yep. And God bless them if they can do it on their own, in the new financial world of college athletics, but I would think that would be a tough task, Greg.
Yeah.
I just do.
I'm just ready for the season to get started. And if you do a new Big 12 projection.
And I will.
Okay. Now, don't disappoint me this time.
Where to put Cincinnati?
I know you like Sorsby.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, that offensive line is going to be as good as any offensive line around.
Okay.
And Kiner ran for over 1,000 yards last year, and he's back.
Yeah.
And we got the kid from Ohio State who's going to get a lot of carries too.
Yeah.
So offensively, they're going to be much better. Defensively, they're going to the three-man front this year, which will free up Carleone. So I'm looking for 6-6 at worst, 7-5.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, and I know that I won't have Cincinnati in the bottom 5. I know that.
Okay, so I can hope for at least 11th. And to be real truthful with you, Greg, between you and I, because I've been calling in for a long time, if you put them at 11th, I'm going to be, again, highly disappointed. Just kidding you.
Okay.
Hey, stay safe in the storms, and I'll talk to you again.
You got it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bearcats.
Yep.
Mr. Ed Wayner, Super Chat, thank you so much for your generosity. 13 or 14 game seasons coming. Keep, more money, and you also keep the rival. I don't think so. I mean, I think we're staying with the 12-game regular season. Expanded playoffs, keeping the championship games. I don't think we're expanding the season. If we do, it better be a part of some collective bargaining agreement, Mr. Wayner.
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis, can you hold on for a moment, Lewis?
Sure.
I do appreciate it. Just want to get caught up here. Wayner, if it goes to 13, 14 game season, regular season game in the playoffs, it has to be part of a collective bargaining agreement. If you have a CBA, anything is possible, right? Anything is possible. If you're willing to give the money to the student athletes, anything is possible. Thank you for your super chat. I appreciate it. Ryan Thomas, I get compensated with PATC popcorn and peanuts. Absolutely. And there is some cheese that you can dip your Totitos chips into. That's the only cheese available in the Holy Smokes Theater. Ryan Thomas, thank you for the super chat. Lewis, Mr. Duke Blue Devil, you're on the line. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
Yes, one item that we've discussed a lot, and is a big topic of this show. But first, before that, I want to say, Greg, having listened to several of your recent shows, it's very entertaining to hear you read the legal pleadings as if, it's just something that, with summary judgment motions and so forth, who would have thought that this would be such a dominant part of college football? But
it does get pretty dry, and I do not do a good job of it. I understand.
Yeah. No, it takes me back to law school a long time ago. I don't litigate now, but I used to do law school, so fun stuff. But the ACC, I want to talk a little about this discussion about, is the ACC going to settle? Now, part of the issue is it may be hard to get the ACC in the unanimity because kind of like the Pac-12 a couple of years ago, there are about 4 or 5 different camps in the ACC that have different points of view. But I'll tell you this, the majority in that league have to be suffering a little bit from recruiting because recruits are asking and parents are asking, where's the league going to be in 4 or 5 years or 3 years? And the schools that aren't at the top of the food chain can't answer that. That gives a huge advantage to the Big 12 schools that are comparable to the ACC schools in recruiting and for a period of time. I don't know how much that impacts it, but if in addition to the fact that there's an opportunity for the ACC to get a large chunk of change from some of these schools. I'm wondering if this instability starts to manifest itself in recruiting, and this will be the first class as it's coming up where you'll get to see that. But you have different factions. I mean, Florida State and Clemson are fine. North Carolina and Virginia will ultimately, at worst, the ACC stays together and they're at the top of it. And that ACC, with them still in it, if that actually happens, it would be pretty close to the Big 12. But they're likely headed somewhere. Then you have the magnificent 7 schools, Virginia Tech, NC State. I'd throw Louisville in there as well in that group that, are going to be in Miami. They're going to be okay. They're not going to be any worse than the Big 12 level in competition. But then after that, you have wobblers. I mean, Duke's a wobbler right now. It's not clear that Duke will end up in at least a Big 12 level situation. I believe there's a better chance than not they won't fall down, but it's not clear. I think Pitt's a wobbler, and Georgia Tech is a wobbler. Syracuse maybe a wobbler, if not worse. And everybody else in that league probably doesn't has real concern. Excuse me, Stanford. Stanford could end up somewhere because they're Stanford. So these schools are getting questions on what's the future of the league, because everybody knows these lawsuits are out there. They know that these schools are leaving, Florida State and Clemson, one way or the other. I don't see how they can continue to operate. I think it impacts recruiting at the football level, but it doesn't affect the rest of the sports. And that, in addition to the money, might be a driver to eventually have this settled. But again, everybody has different points of view. If they don't settle it legally with the appeals process and the multiple jurisdictions involved, and eventually getting into even appeals, conflicting states and getting into federal court, they could tie this up in court until 2036 if they really wanted to and keep everybody there. But that really doesn't become advantageous to do that at some point with that. And so we will see. I'm wondering how much that, the recruiting aspect, and just operating a program with uncertainty, because if you're going to choose a school and you're choosing between ACC school at the bottom half of the league in terms of a possibility versus a Big 12 school, that the Big 12 is not likely to have any instability. Nothing significant. That conference of teams is likely to mostly be together. And so they at least know what they have. It's not going to be the SEC and Big Ten level, but it's a level. ACC, it's really uncertain. That might be what ultimately drives some kind of a resolution to this problem. And that's what I wanted to make today. I look forward to listening to the rest of your show.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lewis. Appreciate it. Great call once again from Lewis, the legend. Fantastic call. And, he's right. There could very well be different camps. There definitely is different camps in the ACC when it comes to the question of settlement, the timing, the money. Again, we talked about it. It's easier to hit a single nail with a single hammer than swinging 5 hammers in your hand and hitting that nail appropriately. It's the same question in regards to North Carolina. Who's really the decision maker when it comes to the North Carolina quagmire? Who's the decision maker when it comes to ACC settling? How does it even work? What if Jim Phillips wakes up tomorrow and say, we should settle now at this certain number? Does he go to ESPN? Does he go to Wake Forest, Syracuse? Does he call everybody together? Just another reason why, and I'm speculating, and I'm probably going to be wrong. But just another reason why I think this has to be kind of all laid down on a spreadsheet. Like, this is the guardrails on a settlement. ACC needs this to settle. We need this at this time with this money. With these 2 schools leaving, with these other two, if another 2 schools, we need this. ESPN needs it. We need it. Wake Forest needs it. Syracuse needs it. Boston College needs it. Duke, the rest of the ACC schools that are going to leave. This is what we need. So the question of waking up in the morning and getting everybody on board, that's no more question. Like, this is what's needed. Anything less than that, we're just going to continue on. It's got to be it's like, I don't know. I'm probably being naive, but because I do fear that the ACC could be paralyzed with analysis. Too many, how is the process to make this incredibly big decision? Then you throw ESPN in the mix, the different camps that Lewis just said in the ACC. He brings up a great point. Lewis always brings up a great point. I always bring up a great point. Again, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. Get yourself subscribed and get yourself notified. Open up, turn on those notifications because we can come on live at any time. I know we got 280 people still watching our program. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the smash the like button. Give us a call, 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Talk about anything in college football that you want to talk about. Again, North Carolina. The bill passed the committee that would force North Carolina State to play other in-state FBS programs routinely. Not just in football, but in men's basketball, women's basketball.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. Tell us what is on your mind, sir.
Well, Greg, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt.
I woke up Sunday morning. I gotta sing that song. Go ahead.
Yeah, you do. It's a great song. And the beer I had for breakfast
I think I
wasn't
sang
bad,
that
Greg.
song once, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You sent me the Man in Black. So, you sent me the Man in Black, and, I enjoy that. I just want to kind of put this, the PATC, the ACC play here. This is a 3-act drama here, folks, and there's a long intermission between each of them. Act 1 is FSU and Clemson, Act 2 is Tobacco Road, and Act 3 is the refugees. And what happens with Act 2 and 3? A lot of it's gonna depend on what ESPN does with this FSU and Clemson settlement. Because if there is a settlement to get FSU and Clemson out, as part of that, there's a possibility that ESPN will either do something to facilitate the disintegration of the league or something that could lock the league up further and, until that 2036 period. So I'm really, really interested to see what ESPN's play is here, Greg.
Yeah.
That to me is the wild card, because if ESPN decides to keep that league together in some form or fashion, UNC, they're really the only one that would be actively trying to get out, and they'd be outvoted. It's gonna be a super interesting drama to see, and when it happens, the people have to realize that with Act 2 that I mentioned is those ties between UNC, Duke, and UVA and NC State go back 150 years. And the Tobacco Road fiefdom is very real. And, I don't think you can say if the SEC wants UNC that bad, and if they want UVA that bad, they're going to have to take Duke. That's the only way they're getting UVA. And they might have to take NC State. So you guys can give me this whole multiple schools in the same state argument that's been defunct several billion times with UCLA and USC, BYU, Utah, Arizona State, Arizona, Cal, and Stanford. That's all a bunch of nonsense. So let's just remember this isn't about old days of cable. This is about brands and eyeballs. So, I think that to me is going to be the very interesting piece of this. And if ESPN wants those properties there, they'll get them there. But if they want to keep them in the ACC, I think the ACC is so divided right now, Greg, and there's so many crabs in that bucket. I think that people should not underestimate the possibility of the ACC continuing with just without Clemson and FSU. It's very possible. People should not discount that. And we're only a month away from 3 new members in there, voting members in there, and so I think people need to keep that in mind. That the ACC continuing on just without FSU and Clemson is a very real possibility.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all I have. Just watch and see what ESPN does and how they're involved in the settlement or settlement with Clemson and FSU. And man, Greg, I mean, if these actually get to court date, if these actually get to trial, and there is a summary judgment or the judge rules in favor of either FSU and Clemson, and we have this thing is going to be, this is going to be complete. It's going to be that line in Ghostbusters, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. It's going to be absolutely wild, Greg. And I'm going to be getting fat on PATC popcorn, but it has real butter, Greg, and that's the good thing. Good Land O'Lakes, Minnesota butter on that popcorn.
Yeah. There you go. Just wait.
Take care,
wait till the drama of this college football season playing out. That's going to be the heaviest drama of all time. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and the sad thing is this realignment stuff often outweighs and overshadows that, like it did last year with the remarkable Pac-12 season that was overshadowed basically based on its collapse. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for your hard work, Greg, and great job, and thanks for everyone's calls.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Okay, we did get a couple donations. Expedition Greg, thank you so much for your generosity. Tracy FSU, I know there's been some complaints out there. Usually there's complaints about me singing. There's been a lot of complaints over the last couple of years about me singing because you tune into a national college football program. You're not here to listen to a D-plus singer. That's not what you're here for. There's been a lot of complaints. But now there's been a lot of complaints about, Greg, you haven't really sang much at all lately. So I'm getting complaints on the other side. So because of the generosity of Expedition Greg, because of the generosity of Tracy FSU, and because Ryan Thomas brought up this song, I'm going to sing for you right now. Sunday morning, coming down. I haven't sang this in a long time. No practice, no rehearsal. That's not what we do. This is a live show. So what you're going to need to do, a lot of new people watching the show for the first time or maybe for the 8th time who've never listened to my very difficult accent, northern Minnesota accent when I sing a song. For most of you, you're going to need to hit the mute button. Hit the mute button until I'm done singing, or get out of the chat. Unfortunately, get out of the live feed, which I don't want to happen, but I completely understand. Some of you have told me you put cotton in your ears. Some of you have told me that you need to have time to take the dog outside or put them in a different room because they start howling. Whatever you need to do. This is Greg Pflugar, PATC rendition of Johnny Cash, Sunday Morning Coming Down. Let's see what happens. And that is the rain. So I got rain accompanying me. Okay. Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. Then I fumbled in my closet, through my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. Then I washed my face and combed my hair and stumbled down the stairs to meet the day. I'd smoked my mind the night before with cigarettes and songs I'd been picking. But I lit my first and watched a small kid playing with the can that he was kicking. Then I walked across the street and caught the Sunday smell of someone's frying chicken. And Lord, it took me back to something that I lost somewhere, somehow along the way. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, I'm wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday that makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying that's half as lonesome as the sound on a sleeping city sidewalk in Sunday morning coming down. In the park I saw Daddy with a laughing little girl that he was swinging. And I stopped beside a Sunday school and listened to the songs they were singing. Then I headed down the street, and somewhere far away a lonely bell was ringing, and it echoed through the canyons like the disappearing dreams of yesterday. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, I'm wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday that makes a body feel alone. There's nothing short of dying that's half as lonesome as the sound of a sleeping city sidewalk and Sunday morning coming down. All right, there it is. There it is. I don't think I started in the right key. That's one of my problems. That is one of my problems. I think I started a key a little bit too high. Thank you, Tracy FSU, for your donation. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rebecca. Replica. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Don't think that's going to happen. Ring of Fire. I think I've done that once before. I'm not sure. For some reason, I feel like having a cigarette. Haven't smoked for years. Immaculate. Why are the dogs howling? We get that every time, CJ. We get that every time. There are people in the community who have to take their dogs out. Look at the I want to show you guys something. Look at the concurrent viewer chart right when I started singing. You see how that line went downward? Right when I started singing, it went downward. It happens every time I start singing. Maybe that should be telling me something. The cooler. Sweet Caroline. Well, I tell you, no practice, no rehearsal. Of course, we always do it a cappella, no music. Just an old guy trying to recapture his singing days on his college football YouTube channel. Okay, I want to thank everybody who's joined us today for our live show. I do appreciate you all coming in. Please, if you haven't done so, subscribe, smash the like button, open up your notifications. It's only Tuesday. And this has already been a long week. It's already been a long week. So we've already got so much going on. So buckle up, brace for impact. We could come on later on tonight. You never know. Keep your head on a swivel. You PATC community, keep your head on a swivel. We got a lot of things going on here. At Peek Around the Corner. So, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. And to end the show, my father played the harmonica to that Sunday morning coming down Johnny Cash. I don't know how many times my father played the harmonica to that song. There's my father about a week before he passed away playing his harmonica. We took that picture about a week before he finally passed away. He was blowing on that harmonica, and that was one of his many songs, but that song he played a lot. So when Ryan Thomas brought it up, we had to do it. So until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.